Hey everybody, how you doing? And welcome to this episode of Talking Heads. Let's get right into it. I'm going to introduce my panel. To my left, I have Julie Geyer. You can wave. Next to her is Tim Deary. And next to him, we have Joanna Rajendran. Hopefully I got that right. Let's get started. We want to talk about all the trending topics that are going on in White Plains and surrounds. We're going to start it off with Mr. Mayor Bill de Blasio. He defended his school opening after the storm, and there's a lot of people that still have their opinion on that. There was also Carmen Farina who had chimed in on that also. But we're going to start with Julie and talk about that a little bit. How you feel about de Blasio and not shutting the schools down?
So I'm a public school teacher in the Bronx, so this is a direct connection to the life that I'm living this winter. And we've had a lot of snow this season, and I'm lucky enough to live in the Bronx to be able to make it to work every snow day. But I feel unfortunate for all of the staff who are not able to come in because of the weather and because they live so far away and their children are in schools that are being shut down. So they're having to take their time out of their bank to come to work, which is important. But when you can't come because you're stuck at home, you're losing a day. And I don't think that personally as a teacher that's fair. They're quoted for saying they need a warm place to be and a warm meal. But then we're finding with the attendance percentage of people who are actually coming that it's less than 50% of the kids that are coming. So at what risk do we make all the teachers come to work to feed them and make sure that they have somewhere warm to be, because it's not a typical day anyways. When you're at school and you have 5 kids in your class, you're not teaching a new lesson, you're not moving on, you're reviewing. So it's just unfortunate when kids can't come because they're snowed in at home with their families as well.
Joanna, you have kids.
Yes.
How do you feel about that?
So far, I just have the one kid, but she's in a daycare program that's run like a school. And when they call it a snow day, you're not charged for the day. But if you're snowed in and it's not called as a snow day from the school, you're still charged.
Ooh.
So you either have the choice of paying for nothing and keeping her home anyway, or going to take her. And the first time I take her, I totally slipped and fell on ice in their parking lot with my baby.
Wow.
So you do weigh it differently when you're walking with precious cargo than when you're not.
Okay. Tim, what about your kids?
Well, I don't have any kids, so I say go to school, man. It's interesting. I heard that they only closed like 11 times or something like that since 1978.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's part of that thing about the city, like we have to do it because we're New York. So
right.
I don't know if that's part of it, but certainly, whenever you have kids involved, and that's people's kids are very protective over them. Sending them out in like a snow ice storm, probably not the best idea. I know Al Roker got very upset about it. Apparently there was a Twitter war with Al Roker and Mr. de Blasio, something like that. So
There was definitely a little back and forth with Roker and
the weatherman.
And the weatherman. So let's talk about that a little bit. How often does the weatherman make the wrong decision, make the wrong assessment, make the wrong report? You know what I'm saying? Like, who is Al Roker to jump in and blast de Blasio?
Yeah, I was just talking about that the other day. I said, what person do you know can make so many mistakes and still have their job besides the weatherman? And I get it. Like, you can't predict the storms, to the exact T. But, I did talk to some colleagues about the snow days and stuff, and I understand that when we shut down the schools, that means every employee if you have a child, you have to go to work in New York City that day, they can't go. So what happens to those jobs? If they're running the train or working at a grocery store, whatever their jobs is, they can't be there either. So really, when we shut down the schools, I feel like most of New York City has to shut down. So it makes it a hard decision to make. I'm glad that I'm not the person that has to make that decision. You have parents on both sides. Oh, the kids should be at school because it's warm. They need to be learning. And you have other parents who feel my child's on a bus and it's not worth the risk. We've looked at the streets now and, only one car can go down my street now because everyone's, parked on both sides and there's a foot of snow on either side of the cars. So it's, you have to weigh that risk. Again, I'm glad I don't have to make that choice.
To your point a little bit about it being warm, maybe some of the lower income families still have to go to work because schools may or may have not shut down, but businesses are still open, so they have to go. So what do they do with the kids? Maybe they don't have someone to watch them. Maybe in some of these lower income families, there's not 3 meals. You know, some of these kids are getting breakfast at school and lunch. So that's something also to consider, which I'm sure Farina and De Blasio considered also in their decision, and not having shut down school in 30 years or whatever the figure was. They've only done it 11 times. So I mean that's definitely something to think about also.
Yeah, not everybody has Al Roker's paycheck, so
No, that's for sure.
And and my thing is too, instead of the hate, you know, like Al, that's something that doesn't affect him because he does have the money. He could probably take his kids to work and have them on set, and that would be cool with them. And if he can't do that, I'm sure he has the resources to have his kids taken care of too. I think that's a big deal, especially when you're talking about like the lower income families.
And it's not cheap. I mean, I did childcare in New York City, and I was paid $20 an hour, and that's a lot of money. I was like, yes, snow day, I can make a lot of money. But the parents were both lawyers, and, you know, they were like, okay, can you come? It's a snow day. And I would say, okay, great. You know, I'm like, money in the bank. But again, you know, like you pointed out, these lower income families who don't have that luxury, like celebrities and people who have better jobs, they don't have anything to do with their kids. So then they have to take off.
Right.
Or be able to send them to school.
Right. I think it's tough that De Blasio caught a lot of the hate on this because it was a group decision. The chancellor was in on that too, and you know, she said some crazy stuff. But I feel that De Blasio caught the majority of the hits on this one. But let's say it's a tough decision. I'm glad I don't have to make it.
Agreed.
Well, there's one thing that sticks out for me. They always say how non-essential employees should stay home. And I think, oh, that's kind of insulting. How do you have to figure out who you are and how essential you are?
I do not understand non-essential employees. That gets me every time. Non-essential employees. That's crazy.
Or they say, you know, we're in a state of emergency, but teachers and students, you must, you know, go to school and, you know, you have to get there. And you know, that's what every teacher's Facebook says. Oh, state of emergency, but I have to go to work. But if they would, you know, think about it, if they were the parent and their kids needed to go to school because they had to go to work, I think they would probably feel the same way that De Blasio did.
And you guys get 3 months off.
It's 2 months.
Let's
it's July and August.
you get like a little front end of like April or May or something, or the tail end of April, and then like the beginning of August or something. That's
Spring
Easter
break.
Okay. How much total time do you guys get off?
We work 180 days.
Don't answer that. You know what? Let's move on. That's another subject for another show. All right. So recently, lawmakers have pressed the NFL on the name change for the Washington Redskins. There's 2 members of Congress that sent a strongly worded letter to the NFL this past Monday, a few Mondays ago, supporting the change of the name of the Redskins. Joanna, why don't you start on this one?
Okay, well, I personally am offended, not by the name the Redskins, by the team the Redskins, because I'm a Giants fan. I'm offended by
there's
all
always
things.
one.
But you're a Bills fan. You're close enough. But it's interesting because at first glance, and when this story first started becoming a real story, I started thinking how I always think of issues like this. If it's a civil rights issue and if it's possibly offensive to anyone, why have it as a name? Just because it's a habit. You know, when St. John's changed from Red Men to Red Storm, they didn't lose any fans. It just took a little adjustment. Maybe you didn't say the right name for the first 6 months. Then you got used to it. And now St. John's fans will never really have known that it was Red Men before. So to me, I felt like there was no reason not to, except for a financial reason. Dan Schneider doesn't really want to pay to rebrand what he bought and has been branding for all this time. And so at first I was thinking, definitely change it. If it could possibly be offensive, definitely change the name. Then I was reading, I think it was Rick Riley wrote this whole article about how Native Americans didn't find it offensive. So then I thought, who are we to find it offensive for someone? Are we looking for an issue? Are we looking for a problem in the spirit of political correctness? So now I'm not sure where I stand. I think I would have to ask more Native American friends how they feel and get a real sense. Because I personally could be offended if I think it could possibly offend anyone else.
Right. I feel like at the end of the day, well, I'm going to start where I started with it. If you have an organization, if you have a business, if you have anything, a foundation, and you have a mascot or something that represents that organization, how could it be bad? That was kind of my thinking at first. And then as I kind of talked to people and read some more things and realized that Redskin is a racial slur to whether it's one Indian or Native American or whether it's the majority or somewhere in between, it comes down to it's something that is offensive, and it's like to me it's kind of like the N-word. That's what I put it up against. If there was a team out there, and that was the name, even though it was the name of this organization, and that's what that organization wanted to represent, I don't think I could go for it.
Well, if that's how you feel, then where do you draw the line? What about the Chiefs, the Braves? What about other things that are alluding to those kind of terms, even if they're not as blatant? Do you change them all?
That's a really good question, and I feel like it comes down to, is it offensive? Is Chief offensive? Is Seminole? Seminole is a tribe. Seminole is not. It's not a racial slur. I think it comes down to whether it's something that can be offensive, where someone sees it offensive, where it may be like a racial slur. Like if we were to get into an argument and I say, hey, you know what, and I throw that out, I doubt anyone is like, oh, you're just a Seminole. And then somebody gets outraged. You Comanche, and then it turns into, and then the fight's on.
I agree with Joanna, though. I think that if the slur is offensive to the people who it's slurring, then I think it should be changed. But again, like you said, I would never be like, hey, you Redskin. I wouldn't really think of that as a slur. But I agree that if the people who it would slur and offend are offended, then it should be changed.
The National Congress of American Indians, they actually released a poster and a little juxtaposition. And it wasn't the Redskins, it was the Cleveland Indians at the time. And the Cleveland Indians logo is to me a lot more offensive than the logo of the Redskins. And you had, what they did was they took some other groups and juxtaposed it and see what would people think, So they had the New York Jews, and then they had the San Francisco Chinamen, and then they had the Cleveland Indians. And all the, different features of these particular, race nationalities were, taken to a higher level where, on the logo. So it was interesting to see, like, how would people feel if you went out to see the San Francisco Chinamen? Like, how would Chinese people feel about that? Or, if there was the New York Jews, or how would the Jewish people feel about that? So, a lot of Native Americans, I feel like they don't get as much representation necessarily as some other races, maybe because they're on these specific territories where, they were sent to live. I don't know if that's part of it.
I saw something like that in reference specifically to what you said. It's not real. I saw a Cleveland Indian and Sambo split in half down the middle. Sambo is blackface caricature. That's more realistic. It's because the Sambo character is real, and it's something that has been used. So I think that's more of where they should have gone with it, because you can throw out like the whatever you throw out, people will feel a certain way, but the realism of that is that it's not real. It's not really something that's out there. But again, the more I think about it, I'm just kind of swaying to be on the fence a little bit. But if it's something that if there's one or 50 or the majority feel like Redskin or Indians or Chiefs is a slur, and maybe it's something that they've been called, I think there's definite justification to think about getting it changed.
I'm fine with that as long as they come up with a better name than like Red Storm. Because what is that?
Well, you know what? With St. John's, they're Johnnies.
They're Johnnies, right?
They should have. That's something that they should have considered.
I would have done that.
Maybe the Red Johnnies or the St. John Johnnies. I mean, it sounds kind of redundant, but that's kind of the name that's been adopted now.
Yeah.
So
But then why are the Utah Jazz kept the Jazz name from New Orleans, and it doesn't make any sense.
Same with the Lakers.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. And
The Redskins actually started in Boston. They were the Boston Braves, and then they moved to Washington, and then they were Washington Braves, and then the name was changed. So
was it changed by any Native Americans, or was it all white guys?
White guys in suits.
White guys in suits.
I'll have to do some more research on that. But the bottom line is that there are name changes. The Charlotte Hornets, you know, they were the Hornets, and then they went to some other stupid name.
Bobcats.
It was Bobcats.
Sounds like a
And
high
then-
school
and-
team.
But now they're back. But now they're back to
They're
the
gonna
Hornets
be-
because
yes,
that's what
yes.
everybody loves. But names change. You know, the Houston Oilers changed to the Tennessee Titans. I
But
believe.
because
Yeah.
it was offensive, or
No,
because they
no,
didn't
no.
like the name?
But I'm just saying, in general,
Well, the Bullets, Washington Bullets changed to
Yes.
Wizards because
Right.
it was in the number
Same
one
town, too.
crime capital.
exactly.
And so they realized maybe we're promoting the wrong thing here by calling our team the Bullets.
So the bottom line is, can be done,
Yeah.
regardless of whether you bought a team and this is the brand that you bought or whatever the case may be. What's his name? Who changed the Bobcats?
Jordan.
Jordan?
No, it wasn't. No, it was Robert. The guy. Well, anyways, the guy who bought the Charlotte Hornets. He bought the Charlotte Hornets, and then he changed the name to Robert Johnson. Actually, it was his name, and he changed the name to the Bobcats. So he bought the Hornets franchise with all that merchandising, but then he got a little ego and he changed them. Robert changed them to the Bobcats. So you know, if you have the right person in place, they'll do it.
They can look at it as an opportunity. Look, when Kobe Bryant switched his number, how many jersey sales they got for the same player that already had the old number.
That's
So if they rebrand it the right way, they get all those Redskin fans buying new jerseys.
exactly.
I mean, if someone could name a professional team the Pelicans, I think, and they could name them anything.
That's a big name.
That's another show too. All right, we're gonna end on Pelicans. Moving on, information overload, digital distraction. With all the social media and the smartphones, is the internet and all the information that's coming around, is it too much? Is it distracting? Tim, why don't you start on that?
Well, one thing I want to focus on specifically is this show that came out. It's in its second season, House of Cards. It's a Netflix show, so it's not even on a television network anymore, some of these shows that are coming out. And their thing is to release everything, or the whole season, in one day, which kind of makes you want to watch it because it's a good show, but it makes you want to just watch it and watch it and watch it, and you're not necessarily doing things you should be doing with the rest of your life because you're focused on the show. And they released it on Valentine's Day, so it's like, yeah, don't bother falling in love or anything. Just stay home and watch the show. You know, I mean, it was kind of a funny gimmick, but it does kind of pertain to some, like, you know, how we are so involved in digital media these days and in our phones. And you know, you've seen the pictures of people at Christmas together, and they're all like looking in their phone like this. I think we're all going to have some neck issues when we get older as well.
Or going out to restaurants. I hate when you see parents with children in restaurants and they each have their own like iPad playing a game or watching a movie. How are they going to learn social skills? I understand that technology is important and you need to have those types of skills, but you also need to know how to socialize, like good old people. A lot of people have a rule, like if you go out to dinner, all your phones go in a basket. Whoever checks it first, like, has to pay. But I can
I like
imagine, like, if I was an employer and I had employees, I would want to ban their phones because they're not going to do as much work because they're checking their email, they're aiming, they're checking their Facebook, and we're all guilty of it. But luckily I'm the employee, not the employer. But I have like a lunch period, and that's the only time I'll be on my phone. My phone is in my desk, in my coat, put away. I think it's disrespectful when, I can speak as a teacher, when teachers are on their phones texting their friends. No, you have a job to do. So if you're a lawyer or a secretary, you have a job to do. You have specific criteria that you're supposed to do. None of that includes updating your status on Facebook or taking pictures of your students and posting them online. Like, you need to be doing the job that you're being paid for and give all of your attention to that. In your free time, that's up to you, unless you're at dinner with your family, because you need to teach your kids how to socialize.
I agree. I have two thoughts on that. One, as a mom, it's important to me to figure out the balance between helping her learn the tools that she's going to need in this century, which is the technology, and she's not even 2 and she has a full iPhone finger. She knows how to do these things. And we've chosen to limit it. She doesn't have any technology at mealtime in the house or out of the house because I want her to be able to learn to engage with people. If we go to a restaurant, she can color because when you color, you're still playing with people, you're looking up, you're engaging. I do feel the same way about when you go to a restaurant, you see 4 people looking at gadgets instead of each other. I think that's sad. I think that's a real breakdown in our society. I do see the benefits and the convenience. I think it's interesting. It's raising a whole different generation. I was doing a project with my niece yesterday, and she instantly looked it up to give me a reference of what to draw. And I thought, they have no idea what it's like to have an idea or a question and not have it instantly answered. But as a yoga instructor, Tim, I think, said it joking, but I see some injuries from the constant texting and the constant typing. The easy ones are the arthritis and the carpal tunnel issues in the wrists, and I give a lot of wrist stretches to do that. But you'll also see it from the neck from somebody doing this all day, or just from this. Even holding it with your hand starts to make an imbalance in your neck. And especially computers, you start to see computer back. So there are a lot of injuries that come as a result of using these tiny little gadgets of convenience.
I agree with you guys. It also, the instant gratification thing is crazy. Is crazy. I mean, we grew up in an era where you had to research meant you had to research. Like you had to. We were talking about encyclopedias earlier in the green room, and when was the last time someone bought an encyclopedia set? If you ask a kid, probably 10 years old or younger, like, hey, do you know what an encyclopedia is? They might say Encyclopedia Brown, maybe, but also in the workplace, but just in life in general, there's people that get hit by cars because and they walk out in the street and they get hit. I know I'm definitely guilty of walking to a destination in New York City and I just keep walking and all of a sudden I look up and I'm downtown. I'm on like Ludlow or something like, I'm in like meatpacking district. Like, I think I missed my stop. But it's crazy. It's definitely a crazy thing.
But you're right. And what's that important? I like these commercials that are coming out with texting and driving. Now, I don't have a car, so I don't drive a lot. When I do drive, it's infrequently. But it's not important. That is not more important than your life or the life of someone else. I can't imagine sending my friend a text like, yeah, be there in 5 minutes, and killing a child or another human being. And I'll just be there in 5 minutes. That's not a big deal. You just get there when you get there. Texting and driving, big no-no. Even, I think, driving and talking on the phone, you're still not paying attention. Any sort of distraction. I want to say on, Oprah or some TV show I saw, and they had 4 or 5 different people who thought they were, texting experts. This was, 5 or 6 years ago. And they set up an obstacle course, and everyone was hitting cones, hitting baby strollers, because they're I can do it, and it was like a competition. Whoever could get it done the fastest.
Had to put the baby strollers in there.
Yeah, but it just proved that it's not more important than people's lives and your safety.
I agree.
I think too, it's our bodies are weaker, as Joanna mentioned from being the yoga teacher. We're not historically we're supposed to be out hunting for food and doing all these physical things, and we're not doing any of that anymore. So I think the best way to combat that is try to go to the gym or do some running or be in health and fitness, that kind of stuff. And I find that I found that is getting more popular. Because maybe people are realizing, we were the fattest. I don't know if we were really the fattest nation in the world. We were pretty close. We weren't too good.
At some point, I think we were up there. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the best way to combat it. I mean, we're all going to be in technology at some point, but at least try to set it aside. And especially if you're at the dinner table, come on, man.
Yeah, you have kids.
I agree.
Just go play.
There are tools. There are tools where you could set a timer on a kid's computer or their phone or their iPad, and it can lock them out. And I think that's great. If you could even balance it, if you want 2 hours on the computer, go outside and play for an hour. I don't remember ever needing a toy to go outside and play and figure out a game.
Right.
We had a ball or anything with wheels.
Ball.
Push each other.
A ball, a rock, a stick,
whatever
something.
it is.
Yeah, you figure it out. You figure it out. I think we should end on that note by go to the gym, because I know a few of you guys go to the gym a lot and get your workout on and have lost some weight, and I'm going to work out with you guys because I need to lose some weight. So it is Black History Month. It's still February. Be nice to black people, everyone. I have to talk about this. A George C. Marshall High School student was told to read a Langston Hughes poem, Blacker. He refused to read it, and then his teacher continue to read it as a slave. I'm not exactly sure. I wish we had video on that. But this is crazy. I don't even know where to begin on this one.
I mean, in this digital age, I'm surprised that someone didn't pull out a camera and honestly video record the teacher. I don't know what I would do. You know, during Black History Month, you talk a lot about how I can't imagine, you know, disliking someone based on their skin color or based on a music choice or, you know, any kind of thing like that. Like, people are different and that's what's expected. But to be a role model and a leader, being a teacher, I cannot imagine ever telling someone to read something blacker or read it with more like, be more like Latina or something like that, because I don't know, it just boggles my mind. You know, I teach in the Bronx and I am the white person in my class and I don't ever think about that. Like, we are people and we are humans and we have feelings and that's what it is. And, you know, unfortunately, that was also the only black student in the class. So just to stick it to that teacher a little more, like, I hope there's some sort of punishment for her or at least some sort of apology that she had to make, because she's being a terrible role model and giving all teachers a bad name, which offends me also.
It's one thing if you're like joking around with friends or something about, you know, white this, black that. Like, you know, I have black friends and we joke around. But if you have a student in a class and you're, like you said, the role model, you can't be saying that stuff. It's crazy. Yeah.
It's just in this day and age.
Yeah.
In this day and age.
I hope that it's not just the mother of the child that's offended. I hope every parent is offended. Apparently, this teacher has given her resignation anyway and was not resignation, retirement, that she put in for retirement before this. But the fact that she's still teaching, or that she has been teaching this long with this kind of views, you think of how many children before this child was made to feel inferior because of her antiquated ideas.
Right. It's crazy that someone has been teaching that long. And it looks like, unfortunately, we are out of time. So make sure you check us out on our channel here. And we don't have a website. It's under construction. But you know all of us. If you see us in White Plains, tap us on the shoulder. Tell us about some topics or some issues that you want to hear. And we'll see you real soon.